of the league are free agents. Like, everyone timed their contracts. Everybody signed one-year deals, and everyone timed their contracts to coincide with this new CBA. So literally, there's not even really any team. There's only like 20% of...
Ladies and gentlemen, seriously, pause whatever you're doing for a second, because what just got confirmed on national television is absolutely wild. I'm not exaggerating when I say this situation has gone from messy to completely out of control. For the past few weeks, we've been covering this WNBA collective bargaining drama. We've talked about the tension between players and owners, the money arguments, the jealousy accusations, all of it. But then ESPN reporter Ramona Shelburne went on Rich Eisen's show and basically dropped a bombshell that made everything make a lot more sense, and somehow look even worse. According to her, what's happening right now inside the league is complete chaos. This isn't just a normal labor disagreement anymore. At this point, it's starting to look more like a standoff where nobody wants to move first. And here's the part that sounds so crazy you almost think it can't be real. Right now, around 80% of the WNBA players don't actually have contracts with teams. Yeah, read that again. 80% of the league is technically sitting without a deal. And the reason? This wasn't an accident. This was coordinated. Players were encouraged to take short-term contracts so they could all hit free agency at the same time and put maximum pressure on the owners during negotiations. The idea was simple. If almost the entire league becomes available at once, ownership would have no choice but to meet their demands. In theory, that sounds like a power move. In reality, it may have just pushed the entire league into a full-blown crisis. Because think about it, if most of the players aren't signed, the league literally doesn't have enough contracted athletes to even guarantee games. That's not leverage, that's flirting with disaster. And it gets even crazier. The strategy reportedly came with a big promise. Players were told to bet on themselves. They were told that when the new money starts flowing into the league, especially with the explosion of attention surrounding stars like Caitlin Clark, everyone would benefit at the same time. Basically, hold out now, cash in later. But there's a huge problem with playing a game of financial chicken like this. Eventually somebody has to blink. And right now, nobody is blinking. Meanwhile, the league is trying to expand. 2 new teams are supposed to be entering the WNBA in Toronto and Portland. Normally, that would be a massive celebration for women's basketball. New markets, new fans, more growth for the sport. Except there's one small issue. Those teams don't even have players yet. Their rosters are literally empty. They're supposed to hold expansion drafts, build teams, sell excitement to new fan bases. But they can't really move forward because the entire financial system of the league is stuck in limbo while the collective bargaining agreement remains unresolved. No CBA means no clear salary structure. No salary structure means no contracts. No contracts means no teams. So the entire operation is basically frozen in place. And then comes the most awkward part of all. Recently, the WNBA released its regular season schedule. At first glance, you might see that and think, okay, cool, the season must be locked in. Maybe you even saw matchups like the Indiana Fever taking on the New York Liberty and assumed everything was moving forward normally. But according to Shelburne, that schedule wasn't a sign of progress. It was panic. She described it as the league blinking first. A move they felt forced to make just to keep things from spiraling even further. And honestly, the reason why they had to do it might be the most embarrassing part of this entire situation. Before we go any further, though, if you enjoy breaking down the real stories happening behind the scenes in sports, make sure you hit subscribe and drop a like. It really helps the channel and lets us keep covering stories like this. Because what's happening next in this situation? It somehow gets even crazier.
We're getting close here, Rich. I mean, I thought it was interesting the league put out a schedule, because one of the pressure points I've been hearing was literally arena dates. You know how this goes. Like, if you don't have your dates on the schedule, they give them away to some concert. They give them away to some circus that comes to town, or they give them away to anybody else who wants to use the arena. Arenas cannot have open dates. And if you want those open dates, you gotta lock those in. So the league went forward with the idea of let's do the schedule, even though we don't even know who's on what team. And I thought that was a blink.
So let me make sure everyone understands what was just revealed. The WNBA released a schedule for teams that don't even fully exist yet. Not because everything is settled, but because arenas were about to give their dates away to other events. Yes, seriously. According to the discussion, the league had to rush out a schedule so venues wouldn't start filling those open dates with things like circuses, concerts, or monster truck shows. Imagine that for a second. The top professional women's basketball league in the world is literally fighting for arena availability. And the timing of all this couldn't be more awkward, because the league finally has more attention than it's had in years. Players like Caitlin Clark are bringing massive ratings. Stars like Aya Wilson and Sabrina Ionescu have helped elevate the profile of the game. There's real momentum building. But behind the scenes, everything is stuck. Owners and the players' union are locked in a battle over money, revenue sharing, and the future financial structure of the league. Some of the biggest voices in the union believe the players deserve a much larger percentage of the league's revenue moving forward. From their perspective, the league is growing and the athletes want a fair piece of that growth. But from the owner's perspective, they're being asked to give away huge chunks of revenue in a business that historically hasn't been massively profitable. So the standoff continues. And while that fight plays out, the league is left in this bizarre position where schedules are being announced before teams even have finalized rosters. Think about how strange that is. Imagine the NBA announcing opening night, but half the players in the league weren't actually signed yet. It would be chaos. That's basically what's happening here. And veteran broadcaster Rich Eisen pointed out the obvious question that a lot of people watching were already thinking. What is the one thing actually keeping attention on the WNBA right now? Because let's be honest, there's one name that keeps coming up in every single conversation about the league's future. And once that topic came up in the interview, the entire discussion suddenly took a very interesting turn. So in the next part, we're going to talk about exactly what that moment was and why it might explain everything happening right now.
To be flippant, but again, there's a golden goose that's getting more valuable here. And, and stars, I mean, Juju Watkins is going to be healthy. Like this is rubber meeting the road here.
And this is where the conversation took a really serious turn. Because Rich Eisen said something that a lot of people in sports media have been thinking, but maybe weren't saying out loud yet. He basically called Caitlin Clark what she has clearly become for the league right now, the golden goose. And his point was simple. When you finally have something that valuable, something that is bringing new life into your business, the last thing you want to do is put it at risk. But that's exactly what this situation is starting to look like. Because the reality is the momentum around the WNBA right now is fragile. It's exciting, yes. Ratings are up, arenas are packed, social media is buzzing, and for the first time in a long time, people who never paid attention to the league are tuning in. But that kind of momentum can disappear just as quickly as it showed up. Millions of casual fans started watching because of Caitlin Clark. They showed up to see the long threes, the rivalries, the storylines, and the energy she brought from college into the pros. She didn't just bring attention. She brought curiosity from people who normally spend their time watching the NBA, the NFL, or college football. And here's the uncomfortable truth that Rich Eisen hinted at. Those fans aren't necessarily loyal to the WNBA brand yet. They're loyal to the player. If the league suddenly goes dark, if the season is delayed, if May rolls around and Caitlin Clark isn't on TV pulling up from the logo and lighting up arenas, a lot of those casual viewers are simply going to move on. Sports fans in America always have another option. They'll watch the NBA playoffs. They'll watch baseball. They'll spend time outdoors. They'll scroll past the headlines and forget about it. And once that casual audience disappears, getting them back is incredibly difficult. That's how the entertainment industry works. There's a window where people are excited and paying attention. If you slam that window shut, people don't stand around waiting for you to reopen it. Right now, the WNBA has real cultural momentum. But momentum doesn't last forever. If you pause the product long enough, the excitement cools off. And that's what makes the current standoff so risky. Because at the same time all of this is happening, there are veteran voices inside the league telling the media that they're the ones responsible for building the game to this moment. That argument is rubbing a lot of fans the wrong way. Not because those players didn't contribute to the growth of the league over the years. Many absolutely did. but because the surge happening right now clearly lines up with the arrival of a once-in-a-generation college superstar stepping into the pros. And instead of everyone rowing in the same direction, it feels like the league has split into camps. Some pushing forward, others pulling back. And the biggest pressure point is coming up fast. According to Ramona Shelburne, the real moment where this situation could explode isn't some distant deadline months away. It's March. We are quickly approaching a stretch of weeks where an enormous amount of work has to happen all at once. The league has to finalize the financial structure of the next agreement. They have to determine the salary cap. They have to conduct expansion drafts for brand new franchises in 2 cities. They have to run the college draft. They have to negotiate contracts for the majority of the league's players. And then somehow open training camps shortly after that. Normally those steps take months of planning. Now they're being squeezed into a tiny window of time. Even if an agreement was magically reached tomorrow, free agency would be absolute chaos. You could have 100 players all trying to land roster spots at the same time. Front offices would be scrambling. Coaches would barely know their own teams. Players might meet their teammates days before the season starts. And when that happens, the quality of basketball at the beginning of the season almost always suffers. Fans notice that. Viewers notice that. The entire product feels rushed. All because negotiations dragged too far into the calendar. Another uncomfortable question people have started asking is about leadership inside the union itself. Shelburne pointed out that some of the biggest voices guiding these decisions are established stars. Players who have already built careers, endorsement deals, and financial security. Athletes like Breanna Stewart and Nneka Ogwumike have influence and respect around the league. But critics argue that their financial situation isn't the same as many of the players they represent. Superstars can afford to miss paychecks for a while. They have sponsorships. They have international opportunities. They have investments and other income streams. But for younger players or those on the edge of making a roster, the situation is very different. For them, a WNBA contract can be the difference between staying in professional basketball or having to move on entirely. That's why some observers believe the risk being taken right now could hurt the most vulnerable players the most. And there's another powerful figure watching all of this closely. Adam Silver. Because whether people want to admit it or not, the NBA has significant influence over the WNBA's future. Silver understands the opportunity sitting in front of the league. He also understands how quickly things can fall apart if negotiations spiral out of control. Television partners are paying attention too. Networks like Disney, NBC, and Amazon don't invest billions of dollars into sports properties unless they believe the product will be stable and reliable. If a league can't guarantee that its biggest stars will actually be playing when the season is supposed to start, those partnerships become much riskier. Contracts often include clauses that allow networks to renegotiate if games disappear. That's the kind of scenario everyone involved is trying to avoid. Because what started as a push for a larger share of revenue could quickly turn into something much worse, shrinking the entire pie for everyone. And that's why some analysts are calling this situation a textbook example of how momentum can be mishandled. The league was handed an incredible opportunity. A generational player arrives. Attention skyrockets. Media coverage explodes. All the pieces are there to grow the sport. But growth requires stability. It requires cooperation. And right now, stability is the one thing the league doesn't seem to have. Fans are watching this unfold in real time and wondering what happens next. Will both sides find common ground before the clock runs out? Or are we heading toward a delay that could cool off the hottest moment the league has had in years? Because if the season actually gets pushed back, or worse, canceled, people are going to remember how it happened. They're going to remember the arguments, the power plays, and the decisions that led to it. Not the fans. Not the rookie bringing millions of eyes to the sport. But the leadership decisions made during this moment. Right now, the opportunity is still sitting there. The league can still capitalize on it. But time is running out. And if the next few weeks don't bring some serious progress, the WNBA could find itself staring at a situation nobody wanted, where the excitement disappears just as quickly as it arrived. So keep your eye on March, because that's when we'll find out whether this story ends with a breakthrough, or with one of the biggest missed opportunities the sport has ever seen. And if you've been following this whole situation with us, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think both sides will reach a deal in time, or is the league heading straight into a lockout? Either way, the next chapter of this story is going to be huge.